Hi, good morning everybody. My name is Brendan Jacobs. I'm a stewardship specialist with the Raisin Region Conservation Authority, as well as the coordinator for the local Alice Ontario East program. Today we're going to be taking you on a tour of 3 local farms to meet the landowners, learn about their farming operations and the best management practices that they've implemented to improve not only the health of their farms, but also the health of the watershed. Please hop aboard with us and enjoy the ride. Morning, Lawrence. How are you today?
Not too bad. You?
Oh, pretty good. Hope I'm not interrupting your harvesting.
Yeah.
Pleasure to be here, and very excited to see some of your projects. And if you'd be able to tell us a little bit about your farm and your operation and the history of the area here and stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's a dairy farm primarily. We do some cropping to sell as well. Hay, corn, and beans is our predominant crops.
I know you've done a lot of erosion control work over the years on this stretch of creek here.
We had a little small piece of bush. Is the last one we done, and the erosion on the bank of the ditch is what got us interested in fixing it up. The bank erodes around the bottom and the top falls in. The previous owner had also done some work through the fields, which was another reason that we wanted to continue it.
Wondering if you could show us those projects.
Yeah, okay then, let's go down. Now, we started in here and went over to that point over there.
Okay.
You can see the
boulders coming.
Boulders, yeah, that's what you guys put in. And the erosion part, like it was, the creek I think eventually, or originally was over there.
Yes, okay.
You know, and it washes here and it kind of pushes the silt that way.
I remember that when we came out to see it before we did the work, that
Yeah.
it was depositing on the far side there and really starting to tear up. And I remember seeing all these sections just dropping in here.
Yeah.
We were going to start losing some of these trees into it.
Well, we had to remove some. They excavated it first, like to get the slope and that, and then they put in fieldstone is what we used mostly, and then they got some stuff from the quarry to finish it off on top.
Right. Okay. Yeah, you can see some of the fieldstone sticking out here.
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. And so when they sloped it back, they had to remove a few of the trees and everything.
Yeah, we had to remove a few trees, and also we had to take the bank to fix up the bank. Like,
Yeah. So it was pretty much vertical at that point.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
This has helped, especially on the curves in the ditch. You know, where there's a corner, it really washes the far bank out. This far bank here is done with stone, and I'm not even sure what kind. It was before I owned this. Starting from the bridge, going down here.
Okay.
And it's all, you can't see much of the grass now, it's growing in.
Yeah.
But it's been done, and and it hasn't moved since. Like, it's been done now at least 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And then over here there's round stone. It came from St. Albert, and they used it on the pipeline.
Okay, right.
And then whenever they were finished with it, we got it put in here.
That's held together really nicely.
Yes, I was surprised. I thought they needed like blasted stone, you know, quarry stone to hold better, but this stuff has never moved. Yeah.
I noticed here as well that after the erosion control is done, you've been keeping a buffer of grasses. So you've got the long grass and the shorter. You seem to be mowing the shorter grass, keep the weeds out of the field.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, we've met a few farmers who, in their buffers, they've been mowing them as a way of keeping the weeds out and things like that, but just having a nice grassed area that helps stop the erosion from the field from entering the creek.
This creek here, both sides are done here in spots. And it goes up there. We see the top of an oak tree there. Well, just before that, there's quite a bit done on that side. And then after, when the creek goes this way, there's a bunch done on the other side.
Okay. What's interesting about this one, I remember, is that it was they used some bioengineering with it as well. So they did, they put the rock in, and then all the willows were planted along the bottom of the bank to help hold it together and stabilize it.
Yeah.
To replace some of the rock that would normally be used. And so far, it looks like it's held in really well.
Yeah, it's done good. Like I would recommend it. I'd like to get more done. Like I said, it's the willows. A little concerned. We don't know how they're going to be as they get older. Like, are they going to plug the ditch or?
Well, they're scrub willows, so they shouldn't get any much bigger than this.
No.
They're not going to be big, large willow trees.
Okay.
Typically, they use sandbar willow, which is like a shrub.
Okay.
And it can actually withstand quite a bit of a beating. So if at any point, you mentioned you had that side brusher on your tractor, if at any point you thought it was getting too thick, you could actually run the mower over them, and they'll shoot back up again.
Yeah, okay.
So the main reason why willows are really good for the erosion control part is the root system helps hold that bank together. Now I know with tile drainage and stuff it's not always ideal, but if you keep them away from the tiles,
yeah,
they're really good at holding that bank together. This has provided a really good canopy for the creek. So I know this creek feeds into Sutherland Creek, which has a very big fish population.
Okay.
It's a very important creek for the local fish population and the local perch fishery.
Yeah.
So any work that's done on here has a direct effect on what's happening downstream. So I think it's great that you've taken the initiative over the years to stabilize these areas that are eroding, adding a lot of sediment to the waterway.
Yeah.
And here as well, you can see where you put in the larger trees, and then you've got your buffer along the top of the bank, which is great too to see.
Yeah. Now you want to see the other one there with the hopefully a future project?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Now this is the corner here. See, it doesn't show much there with all the grass and but starting over there to about here, that's the one it's washes pretty. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And even on the straightaway here, it'll wash out and cave in.
Okay.
You know, but it's not as bad as in the curves. Yeah.
Okay.
And at this point too, in the spring, sometimes if there's a real high flow, this will be all underwater here.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the main one that I would like to
address.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Lawrence, for showing us all the different erosion control projects you have on your farm here, and for hosting our virtual tour today.
Okay, thank you very much.
Our family, the McGilvery family, has been farming this land since the early 1800s. The original land patent was granted in 1796. And they've been stewarding. I think I'm the 8th or 9th generation. I have to go back and check. But we started transitioning into regenerative organic agriculture about 4 or 5 years ago. And actually, we started with doing some tree planting and stuff, and it's carried on from there. From the regenerative point of view, we do rotational grazing. We're a very diversified operation. We have poultry, swine, and beef. And we rotate those around and work on building soil health. Yeah, we can talk about the soil health. We can go out and see some of the stuff that we've been doing.
It's really lush.
Yeah, we've had a really good year. So from a regenerative point of view, soil health is one of the key things, of course, you're aware that we focus on. So this field used to be monoculture cropped in the corn, soybean rotation. We're now moved to fully pasture-based. So we planted a variety of forages and legumes in here. And you can see when we first did that, when you look down, you would see bare ground. But if you take a look down now, you got a carpet, a lush green carpet. And so we're running usually about 3 rotations of pasturing through it, and then one cut of hay as well. So the idea is, and when we first started out, we probably could only get 2-3 rotations, and we really couldn't take any hay off. And as from a best management point of view, we recommend that whenever you do start this, is that you don't take hay for the first little while, so you can start to build the carbon, start building the ecosystem back up, so that you get the microbiology working in the soil, and to basically utilize that carbon that you're putting back in. So if you take a look down, you can see that we got a lot of biomass. Right, and you can see, but well, actually there's a perfect example of what we're getting. And so that's what we're finding is now that we get things going, this is what you see. Before, when it was monoculture cropped, we've actually done tests where we've dug up and we didn't see any worms whatsoever. Okay. So, you know, this is actually a real cool thing now to see, just right at the top of the surface there. They're doing their job. So the other thing is, so we're creating armor on the soil. That's one of the, you know, from a soil health point of view, you need to keep armor on the soil. So you can see that, you know, we have that. We're feeding the microbiology. And if you come out here on a really hot day and move this aside and take temperatures, you'll see that the temperature is actually significantly less down under there because you're shading it, which you need for the microbiology as well. You want to keep the soil cool. As cool as possible. So this is again probably one of our best fields so far. Some other parts of our farm were petrochemically farmed a lot longer. It's taking them a little bit longer to come back around. Okay. And we're learning as well. Every day is a learning day, and if you're not failing, you're not moving forward. You have to try new things, so we're constantly trying different things. But yeah, so we're really happy with the way things are going here. You can see, if you take a look at all the different bugs and insects there, there's a whole world there.
Millipedes and
yeah, so
worms and slugs and everything.
Yeah, so we're seeing a lot more of nature coming back on the farm here, because once it's here, then, you know, it becomes that hierarchy system. It starts feeding up the food chain.
What were some of the types of forage grasses and legumes that you seeded in?
So the challenge that we have is, like, again, it's you know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. So it's been a learning experience on that. So more diversity is better. And some of the stuff that you're seeing out here, we didn't plant. The natural seed bed. You know, if you make earth bare, you watch it, it'll fill back in really, really quick. Because there's a natural seed bank waiting there. So we're seeing stuff coming out from that seed bank. And
you mentioned you take hay off as well. What you rotate your pasture 3 times, and then at the end of that you're taking hay off?
Well, it depends. Sometimes it's in between. Okay. It really depends, because we have to move the cattle around. They're moved every day. Certain fields will be taken off first, second, or third. In the rotation, depends where we slot it in, wherever it works for that field and where we are in our rotation.
Excellent. I know, as you mentioned, you had poultry and pigs as well. Do they use the same pastures?
Yeah, so this is actually a great example. So we actually have the poultry are in here. So the poultry are putting nitrogen back in the soil. And we're not to the point yet where we're going to do pasture cropping, but that is next in line, is basically put in cereal. So leave the system as it is, okay. No till in grains, and try to get a cereal crop out of it, or a corn crop, or a soybean. We're not quite there yet in the learning experience, yep. But that's something that we'll be looking at in the future. So from a pastured poultry point of view, we do chickens and turkeys. You'll see our turkeys we actually just took our last batch of chickens in this morning, but we have our turkeys. They're in mobile shelters, and they're moved every day. That way they're on fresh grass. A turkey will actually consume about 40% of its diet from the forage, which is really beneficial. Chickens is only 20%. So if we look this way, you can see there they've squashed down the forage. If you go back and look, so they started back just at the end of that field over there. You can see how green the forage is. So they're putting a lot of nitrogen down, so they have basically fresh grass to eat every day, but they're also not standing in manure because you're moving them every day off their manure. So from a health point of view, it's better for the birds. We don't have to worry as much about disease and stuff. So that's a big benefit of that. And we don't have to have the equipment and the fossil fuel required to put the manure out, and they do it on a daily basis themselves. So
it just works itself in.
It works itself in, and you can see it does a pretty cool job. So,
in terms of putting the poultry through as well, does it help with any kind of pest management that you?
Yeah, they'll do that, they're consuming. Of course, you've seen the bugs and the insects we have. So, from a health point of view, like they're healthy birds. They got a very diverse diet, a diet that a chicken would normally eat.
Yeah.
So this is one of the latter fields that we converted over. You see, it's not quite as advanced as that other field. We still have some sparse, some bare spots, but the rotational grazing really does benefit the soil. You can see actually there's some remnants of the rotational grazing. You also see some of the carbon we're putting down. Right, it's starting to build now, right? Yep. And that'll fill in. And if you look here, you'll see there's plants starting, even in that soil, right? There's small plants starting to come along. So it will fill in, it's just a matter of time. So we're not harvesting any hay off these fields right now. We're only doing grazing, just because we want to build that bank for the microbes to be able to eat. And flourish. Other thing we're going to be trying from a best management point of view is bale grazing. So this fall we'll be bale grazing areas that are like this to try to build that carbon quicker. We've seen other producers do it and they've tout the benefits of it. So this is great. You see this actually right here, Brandon, gives us a good view. We look down. The cattle were here in this area probably 6 days ago, and you'll see the growth that's coming back already, right? Maybe a little bit longer, maybe about 7 or 8 days. But so they get moved every day. Okay. We adjust the size of the paddock they get according to the amount of biomass available to them. So whenever they have a lot more biomass available, smaller paddock, and we get more impact. If there's not as much biomass, we open up and give them a bit more space because we want to have so many pounds per acre of animal impact on the land. So it's kind of mimicking what the bison used to do. They would come into an area, clean it up, and then they'd move on, either through predator pressure. A lot of time predator pressure. Our predator is an electric fence, so don't touch it because it will move you. But that is what we utilize to keep the cattle moving. So yeah, they're only in an area for 24 hours. We would like to get down to a 12-hour rotation, but just from a labor point of view, it just takes we're just not there yet.
How many head roughly are in a paddock?
That unit right there, that paddock has about 85 animals in it. Okay. Between that's calves and cows. Then there's a smaller unit over here. They only have 22 in it, so they have a lot smaller paddocks. And again, you can see the rotation coming through. They started at this end, went down, and coming back around. You can see the grass is already starting to green up where they were. We try to give it about 60 days rest period. It just really depends on what's going on with the weather, and we go from there.
Excellent. Roughly, I know you said you adjust the size of the paddocks based on what the forage is available to them, yep. But roughly.
So we're getting about 70 to 80,000 pounds per acre of animal impact right now. So if we have a significant amount of weeds in an area, we'll increase that, we'll double it. And the way we double it is decrease the size in half, and that's how we increase it. We've done that. We've had up to like 400,000 pounds per acre in a very small section to take out some weeds as a test, and it worked. They just, when you put that many animals in a small space, they have definitely a large impact. So it's a great tool to be able to utilize. So the biggest thing is learning the different tools that you have available, like bale grazing, changing your rotations, and things like that. That's the things that you have to learn as you go, sort of thing. As you can see, the patties are just starting to really disappear. When you're first up here, the patties would stay here a long time, but now the microbiology just sucks them down. But definitely this land was definitely more depleted, so it's taken a bit longer to come back. So you'll see, if you go across this field, there's actually 3 different sections here, and that's different mixes, so that we can see how they perform. The other thing is, if we want to take it off as hay, we can take off that one variety. We can graze it and give them 3 different types of forage in that paddock, or we can harvest it by just taking the one section. Yeah. It doesn't give you a lot of forage, but it's very high quality and high nutrient value. But you can see the carbon they're putting down, so it'll start to take off, and it'll go. We now have faith in it. When we first started doing this, we didn't have a lot of faith in it at first, but now we have the faith. We know it's going to come. It's just a matter of time.
Apart from your soil health and pasture management and things, you've adopted a few other pest management practices here on the farm. Can you tell us a little bit about those?
Yeah, so we're an organic producer, so we have to have a buffer zone between us and any conventional farm. So on both sides of our property are conventional farms, so we have the 8-meter buffer zone on either side. Some organic farmers will just harvest that zone. They'll plant it, harvest it, and sell it off as conventional product. We felt that we wanted to have something a little bit different from a long-term point of view, so we decided to plant trees in our buffer zone, and we wanted a diverse variety. So you'll see there's cedar, some spruce, poplar, and some bur oak, and I believe there's some hickory in there as well. So that's more mimics what nature's like. The idea is that we'll harvest the poplar and grow very quick, and then that'll give room for the other species to come in. More likely the same with the white cedar. At some point in time, this farm will need fence posts again. They'll be able to utilize them for that. So, and then with the oaks, the idea is to have nuts, right? So
it's multi-use, not just a windbreak.
No, so it's definitely a windbreak. It's also we have a partnership with Gibbs Honey. They come and they put hives on our property, so that gives a great zone for the bees, because we've let it basically renaturalize. So there's a lot of native species in there. The other things we've learned is from the planting is if to put it into bare soil, don't put anything around them and just let nature come back. We've tried planting into pastures. It doesn't work very well because these species will crowd out the trees, and you get a lot higher percentage of having to replant. But we found that whenever we just tilled it, let nature bring back whatever it was meant to be there, that the trees, you can see these were planted 4 years ago, and they're a little bit taller than me. Yeah.
Do you have any projects down the line that you have in mind, or plans for the future that will help to move your operation in the direction you're looking for?
The one thing that we'd like to have is some ponds, and the idea is to keep the ponds up on the hills, so you keep the water up high and then allow it to slowly work its way down. So again, it goes back to those rainfall events. So building ponds, it'll actually great for the birds. We'll probably bring in other wildlife for us as well. We'll keep the cattle out of it, of course, from a best management practice, fence them out, but it just gives us an extra resource that we can have to, again, try to make the farm more resilient long term.
So usually what we're doing is when we're digging the ponds is in lower areas, but you're saying that on top of the hill it's going to have...
So you want to keep it not right on the very top, of course, but up higher, so that the water we can fill up here. Then if we needed to distribute it, the idea is it'll allow that water to go back down slowly. If you put the water down at the bottom of the hill, then if you need it at the top, it's going to take either fossil fuels or some sort of energy to get that water back up. So the idea is to hold it at the highest point or highest point possible, and then if you need it down lower, you can utilize it for that.
It's a strategic location. So
right, exactly.
How do you see this moving forward into the future? How do you see your farm bettering sort of the landscape as a whole as it moves forward into potentially future generations?
So I think for me, the regenerative, the whole regenerative agricultural ethos is basically, it fits with what I'm trying to achieve for myself, for my family, for my community. As farmers, we need to grow things, right? But we need to do it in a manner that's additive, not extractive. And so, for future generations, You know, right now it's tough to get into farming. This type of farming is a little bit easier because you can see there's not a lot of capital expense. We don't spend our money on capital except for cattle, some electric fencing. So for us, it's creating that system that can, you know, and creating the best management practices and fine tuning them, so to be able to, when we hand them over to future farmers, that those systems have been refined. We have a better understanding of how to work with Mother Nature, how to work with the land, so that, you know, they don't face a lot of the challenges we have. That learning curve for them is a lot less. And so that, because I think you'll see that the yield potential that we have when we work with nature is significantly more than what we can do with man-made interventions. I think you'll find that, you know, as these systems, as people learn, as we put more focus on it, there's lots of smart people out there, and we put people on this, I think you're going to see things grow exponentially. And so we'll be able to feed a growing world in a much more environmentally friendly and better for the communities as well, just from an all-around health point of view. So that's kind of where this is come from.
So yes, thank you very much for taking the time to show us around and explain your operation and some of the practices you've implemented to improve the soil health on your farm. And
well, you're welcome to come out anytime. You're also welcome to bring out any other farmers that may be thinking of this. It is a big change, but to bring people out, show them what we're doing, because, you know, seeing is believing. We had our own doubts when we started out on this, but doing it, you know, those go away pretty quick once you start to see what happens when you start working with nature.
Salut Marc!
Hey, bon matin Brendan, comment vas-tu?
Salut Marc!
Oui, on peut faire comme les politiciens. Je te souhaite la bienvenue à Centre de criblage et à Ferme Agribert. C'est une ferme familiale. Mon père était producteur laitier et puis on travaillait avec mon oncle en arrière. Et puis il y a eu une évolution. Mon père m'a aidé à m'établir dans le domaine de la semence. Et puis on continue notre croissance dans le développement là, de nos terrains agricoles.
Au cours de le temps que vous gérez la ferme, est-ce qu'il y a des problématiques que vous avez vues comme au propos de la qualité du sol, l'érosion, que vous avez trouvé des moyens pour ajuster votre opération ou faire des changements pour que ça diminue les problèmes?
Je me souviens, tout jeune avec mon grand-père, on allait à la pêche à la Scotch River et c'était plein de poissons. J'ai vu un changement dramatique, très rapide. Pâturage, coupe des arbres, beaucoup d'érosion, des gros problèmes de fumier. Mais mon père était un des premiers à faire des plantations et ça a fait un effet domino que les voisins ont planté ces arbres-là. Je pense qu'on a fait des grands pas. Il y a beaucoup moins d'érosion qu'il y en avait avant. Maintenant, c'est de maintenir nos qualités. C'est pour ça que ça fait au-delà de 12 ans qu'on utilise les pratiques pour les plantes couverture. Ici, c'est une expérience, c'est une entomologiste de l'Université de Laval qui a fait une étude sur les bienfaits d'une plante couverture et d'introduire le sarrasin. On voit ici une plante, c'est des plantes couverture. On a nos céréales et on a rajouté du sarrasin avec le radis décompacteur. Avec le radis décompacteur, ben, le mot le dit, ça nous aide à décompacter. Le sarrasin qu'on voit, elle a la vertu de contrôler nos verts fils de fer. Donc, on fait de la régénération de nos sols qui nous évite de mettre un insecticide dans l'enrobage de nos semences. Moi, je crois que ça va marcher. Je vous donnerai les résultats plus tard. Et pour emmener de l'azote dans nos sols, parce qu'on met un poids fourrager. Donc, si on prend soin de nos sols, on va pouvoir faire face, mieux gérer ces changements climatiques-là. Donc, il faut tout de suite faire des actions maintenant pour préserver le garde-manger.
Okay. Tu peux nous expliquer comment ça marche avec des cover crops? C'est quand est-ce que vous les plantez ou les semez, puis qu'est-ce que vous faites avec avant que vous... le printemps prochain, qu'est-ce qui arrive avec?
Nous, c'est simple. Les cover crops, la plupart du temps, sont introduits suite à la récolte des céréales ou des foins, des fourrages. Ça va pousser jusque tard au mois de novembre. Certaines de ces cultures-là sont très résistantes au premier gel. Les pois comme les radis. Le sarrasin, lui, va mourir, mais il pousse tellement rapidement qu'il est déjà en fleurs. Donc, oui, les cover crops, nous allons enfouir par la fin novembre ces cover crops qui nous emmènent de la matière organique, mais des nutriments qui contrôlent les bactéries, contrôlent les virus, mais surtout améliorent notre structure des sols. Ça évite l'érosion, évidemment.
Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres formes d'aménagement que vous faites pour la qualité de votre sol ou l'érosion?
Ici, Brendan, tu peux voir, nous avons des bandes riviéraines. Nous avons pu introduire des arbres et des arbustes. Et puis, on voit ici un fossé. Et puis, on est très fiers de participer avec ALUS, South Nation, ainsi que l'Université d'Ottawa. Chris Kinsley et son équipe d'étudiants nous font de l'échantillonnage pour voir la qualité de nos eaux, comprendre c'est quoi l'impact de notre agriculture sur notre environnement, sur la qualité d'eau. Donc, on est fiers, on a introduit pas loin de 4 km de bande riviéraine. Quand la dernière fois, Brendan, tu es venu voir l'habitat naturel ici, c'est incroyable. Même moi qui viens plus souvent, il y a tout le temps des changements. Malgré la sécheresse, les travaux, on a maintenu de l'eau. Et puis, comme tu peux voir, c'est la continuité de la recherche de l'Université d'Ottawa. C'est la dernière étape du parcours de l'eau de nos champs. Et c'est testé. Et des fleurs, les arbustes poussent. J'ai une faune nouvelle à chaque fois que je viens.
C'était une semence de herbacées, de fleurs pour les pollinisateurs.
J'ai ensemencé des herbacées dans la bande riviéraine, mais des fleurs, une fois. J'ai fait un semis des fleurs de ce côté ici. Toutes sortes de fleurs qui, d'année en année, se reproduisent. C'est mes fraises. Les fraises sauvages sont toujours présentes. On voit qu'il y a une faune, des oiseaux, hérons bleus, des hirondelles. On remarque que oui, la température a changé, mais en ayant cet espace naturel-là, mes champs en ont bénéficié. On n'a pas eu de diminution de rendement. On dirait que nos récoltes se pollinisent mieux, des meilleurs rendements. On avait sur notre ferme, avec mon oncle, à peu près 5 sources d'eau. Puis, il y avait tout le temps des petits marécages, des arbustes là. Oups, on a drainé nos champs. Et puis, les sources d'eau, j'étant jeune, mon père, plus d'eau. Là, on a ramené les vaches à l'étable. Parce que c'était primordial d'avoir l'eau au champ. Donc, moi, je dis qu'on va laisser le temps, parce que en gardant nos eaux, veut pas, on va améliorer notre nappe on va remonter le niveau de notre nappe phréatique. Imaginez-vous 1000 habitats naturels dans l'est de l'Ontario comme ça. Écoute, on est capable. Moi, là, Brendan, là, si tu m'aurais, j'aurais gagé avec toi de voir un résultat aussi rapide. Je t'aurais pas cru. Puis vous me l'aviez dit, toi, puis Chris, vous m'avez dit, en dedans d'un an, vous allez voir un changement. Les agriculteurs, on est capable de contrôler bien des choses, puis on est capable de bâtir des belles espaces comme ça.
Un grand merci, Marc. Ça nous fait plaisir de travailler avec les agriculteurs. Et c'était tellement agréable de travailler avec vous et votre famille sur les projets ici sur le terrain. Et merci pour nous avoir accueillis aujourd'hui pour voir vos projets, de nous parler de votre opération et des changements que vous avez vus sur votre ferme.
Au plaisir, Brendan. C'est un début. C'est qu'un début.
Thank you very much for joining us today. I hope that you enjoyed the tour. It's by working in partnership with local landowners that we were able to see marked improvements in the health of our watersheds and the sustainability of their farming operations.